Hello everyone, in this tutorial I'm going to be showing you how to change the default loading size of the old school RuneScape vanilla client. Most of you guys will notice if you've ever used the client before that when you load it, it will always load in a certain size, which is kind of a random size and is not the same size as a fixed window. And I found a way to make it so that you can change it so that it'll always load with the fixed window size or with any other size that you want. So you'll notice when I start a client by default, it will have these black bars around it. You have to resize it a little bit this way and resize it a little bit this way, and it just is kind of a nuisance, especially if you happen to play a lot of RuneScape like I do. So in this video I'm going to show you how to change that. So I'm assuming that you have the Jagex launcher installed, and if you don't, you can install it from oldschool.runescape.com. So what you want to do is open up your file system and go to your C drive and go to users and then your own username, and then find a folder called Jagex cache. Open this folder, then go to Jagex Launcher and Old School, and then you should see two different files. One of them is just a PNG file, which is just the icon for the program, and one of them is a configuration file called oldschool.prm. You'll be able to open this file in Notepad or any other kind of text editor, so I'm just going to open in Notepad. If you double click it and it asks to find a program to open it, just select Notepad or whatever other text editor you like to use. So I'm going to open this and it should look something like this. Yours will probably look exactly the same. The only line that matters for this purpose is the third line right here, the -dcom.jagex.config, and then it has a URL here. So what you want to do, you'll first notice that this is oldschool.runescape.com and then some other stuff. So another cool thing you can do is make it so that the client will always load a certain world. So if you have a favorite world or always like to play on whatever world, then you can change this to whatever world you prefer by just typing in a number after old school. So since I like world 46, I'm going to type in oldschool46.runescape.com, and this will make it so that the client will always start in world 46. So after you've done that, or if you don't want to choose a world, just don't do that at all. You want to highlight all of this and copy it, and then open up a browser and paste that URL into a browser. So I'm going to take a Chrome tab over here, paste it into the URL bar right here and press enter, and it's going to give me all of this. And this is a lot of information for the client for configuration purposes, and so I'm going to save this, and I'm just going to save it in the same exact folder that I have the oldschool.prm and the PNG file in. So this is going to save as job_config.ws.html. So you'll notice that it is actually a .html file. If you don't have it enabled on Windows to show all file extensions, then it might look like when you save it, it might just display here as job_config.ws, but it is actually a .html file, so that's important to keep in mind. So once you've saved this, you can edit this file also in a text editor. If you use Notepad, it's a little bit sketchy because this is something that I've noticed after playing around with it a bit. Notepad does not show line numbers. Like with a lot of code, you'll have line numbers rather than just having it work more like have the font just wrap around continuously. So I'm going to show you how to do this in Notepad, but you have to be a little bit careful in Notepad. I also have a program called Notepad++ that I use for some programming, and I'm going to use that to help demonstrate exactly what I'm talking about with the line numbers. So I'm going to open Notepad++ and open let me navigate to C, users, Caleb, Jagex cache, Jagex launcher, old school, and I'm going to open this HTML file. And as you can see, it has the line numbers neatly displayed here, and you can see all the stuff is separated out. Now, if I open this instead in Notepad, then it just looks like an absolute disaster. So I'm going to show you guys that. If I open a Notepad window and press Ctrl-O, or just go to File, Open, and then I choose All Files here, then you'll be able to see all files. So I'm going to open this right here, and as you can see, it doesn't have line numbers, and it's just this long mess. So the important thing that you want to look for is you want to just use Ctrl-F to find a certain thing, which is you can just type in preferred or whatever here, and you want to look for window preferred width and window preferred height. Oh god, let me do that again. There we go. So we have window preferred width and window preferred height right here, and then a couple of numerical values associated with those. So its default is 800 for the width and 600 for the height. So what we want to do right here is put your cursor right before the 800, press delete 3 times. Don't press any more than that because there's a new line character that you can't actually see here, and if you delete that, then it will put it onto the same line and it won't work. And I'll show you that in Notepad++ after this, so you can see what I'm talking about. But you should be able, it should work fine if you just press delete exactly 3 times, and then you want to type in 750. And this is the value that you want for the width, and then for the height, do the same thing and type in 367, and then this should be the right size for a fixed client. And if you want it to be a different size, like you like to load your client in a certain size with resizable, then just change these values accordingly and it should work fine. So what you want to do is save this, and then I'm going to close Notepad++ here and open it again just to make sure that it loads the changes properly. And so that it did load this, and you can Control F in here as well and find prefer. So we have window preferred width and window prefer height right here, and these are on separate lines. And some of the mistakes I've made in the past is I accidentally deleted this new line character right here so that it's on the same line, and if it looks like this, it won't work. So it has to be on a separate line, and I did the same thing with advert height once, so it looked like this when I opened it up. And if it looks like this, it will not work. So you have to make sure that you just, if you just press delete 3 times rather than like highlighting it and deleting it, then it should work fine. So I'm going to just save this again, make sure that it's all good. You can close this, you can close the config HTML file, and then you want to go back into oldschool.prm. I'll just open up right here. And you want to change the config that the client is being directed to your config file that you just created instead of this website right here. So the way to do that is you want to go into here and just copy the file path here. So just click on this bar right here, press Control C, and then you want to delete this right here, the URL, delete that, type in file, colon, and then 3 backslashes, and then paste in the directory right here that you just copied. So you have file, colon, slash, 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 and then your C drive location all the way down here, and that brings you into the folder, and then you want to type another slash, and then type in the name of the config file that you just created. So that is jav_config.ws.html. Make sure you have the .ws.html, that's the full file extension. You can change this to just a .txt, or you can change it to a .ws. As long as it's just a basic file that contains text, it should work fine, but this is what you get downloaded by default, so you may as well just use that. So once you have that in there, just save this file, make sure you do file save or Control S, and then you should be all set. So if you click your client down here, it should load up fine, and you'll notice that it opens in a different size than it used to. And when you first open it, it will be cut off a little bit like this because it naturally, or it always opens the first time with this copyright information and then the terms and conditions and privacy policy. But once you actually log in, which I'm going to do right here, and also you'll notice that it did open up World 346 like I wanted it to. So if I just log in here, you will notice that after I log in, the scroll bar goes away and the client size is exactly right for fixed, which is lovely. And if you log back out again, then it won't have that scroll bar and stuff anymore. It should be all fine. So that's how you do this, and hopefully this has been helpful to you guys. The biggest problem that I run into when I was trying to do this was that issue with the new lines and trying to figure that out in Notepad. But if you just put your cursor before it, delete 3 times, and then type in the numbers, it should be all good. And if you really want to be thorough, I guess you could get a more proper text editor that will show line numbers and everything, and then you can see for sure whether you've done it correctly. If you haven't done that correctly, I'm going to go back into this config file again and mess it up basically and show you what will happen if you've done it wrong. So if I open up again in Notepad++ and go like this and then save it, then it shouldn't work correctly. So I'm going to open up client again. It should still show you this standard loading bar window at the start, but once it loads up all the way, it will just close and nothing will happen at all. And if you see that happening, then this is probably what you've done wrong, and you just have to make sure that this is lined up correctly. And one thing you do want to keep in mind is that you did just start a jagex launcher process and you didn't close it. So if you go into your task manager, this is Windows Task Manager, and look for jagex launcher, you still have a jagex launcher running. So if you've messed this up a bunch of times and tried to open a client a ton of times, they'll all be there. They'll be taking up some of your RAM, but you won't be able to see that. So you want to make sure that if you do that and you notice that that happens, make sure you end this process, because obviously you don't want it. It's not actually doing anything useful and it's just wasting memory. So if you happen to have that issue where it loads up and then it just kind of closes and doesn't actually do anything, then you've messed up something with the config file, you need to make sure you fix that. And you need to make sure that you close that process also if you want to not be hugging up memory on your computer. So hopefully this has been helpful to you guys. If you have any more issues, be sure to let me know in the comment section below, and hopefully we can get that sorted out. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys all later.